It was a rainy Thursday afternoon in the small town of Ashford when Emily heard a knock at her apartment door. She wasn't expecting anyone. After a grueling 12-hour shift at Ashford General Hospital, she was ready for nothing more than a hot shower and her favorite crime drama on TV. Nursing in Ashford meant every day was unpredictable, but today had been especially draining. The rain tapped a steady rhythm against the window as Emily wiped the sweat from her brow and shuffled toward the door. When she opened it, standing there was her younger brother Jordan, soaked from head to toe, a battered backpack slung over one shoulder, and an expression that looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. His damp curls clung to his forehead, and water dripped from the brim of his baseball cap onto the welcome mat. "Jordan?" Emily blinked in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" He gave a sheepish smile, one that barely masked the fatigue in his eyes. Mind if I crash here for a bit?" "Of course," she said immediately, stepping aside to let him in. They hadn't seen each other in nearly 6 months. At 19, Jordan had just finished his first year at the University of Oregon, and Emily knew things had been rough at home. Their father, a stern ex-military man with a short fuse for anything that didn't fit his idea of success, never quite understood Jordan. Artistic, sensitive, and more of a dreamer than a doer, Jordan was the exact opposite of their father's rigid expectations. Jordan dropped his soggy backpack in the hallway with a thud, then flopped onto the worn-out couch in the living room, letting out a heavy sigh. Emily grabbed a towel from the rack and handed it to him. "Here, dry off. No interrogations yet, I promise." They sat in silence for a while after Jordan had dried off. He took a slow sip of the hot chocolate Emily had made, his eyes drifting around the room before settling briefly on hers and then darting away again. Something was clearly troubling him. Emily knew Jordan well enough to wait until he was ready to talk later that evening. After a simple dinner of takeout and lingering laughter over a shared joke about the ridiculous amount of ketchup Jordan insisted on putting on everything, they found themselves back on the couch. The television played quietly in the background, but neither of them really watched. Emily finally broke the silence. "So what's going on? You can tell me." Jordan ran his hands through his damp curls, looking at her with a vulnerability she'd never seen before. "I dropped out," he said barely above a whisper. Emily blinked. "You what?" "I stopped going. Not officially yet, but I left." She tried to keep her voice neutral. "Why?" He hesitated before admitting, "It wasn't good for me. I was trying to make Dad happy, but I hated it. I'm not cut out for business school. I want to study music. It's the only thing that makes me feel alive." There it was, the truth she'd suspected but hadn't heard out loud. Their father had always pushed Jordan toward something practical. Music was his passion, the thing that made him shine. Emily had seen him with his guitar, lost in melody, his voice raw and full of emotion. He was good, really good. But she also knew the music world could be brutal. "What's the plan now?" she asked gently. Jordan looked down at his hands. "That's the thing, I don't have one. I was hoping I could stay here for a while, just until I figure it out." Emily hesitated. Her apartment was small, and between her exhausting shifts and trying to keep some semblance of a personal life, she wasn't sure she could take on the role of guardian again. But he was her brother. And more than that, he was chasing his dream. "Yeah," she said finally. "You can stay as long as you need." Tears welled in Jordan's eyes. He leaned forward and hugged her tightly. "Thank you. I didn't know where else to go." In the weeks that followed, Emily and Jordan settled into an awkward rhythm. He picked up a part-time job at a local record store, Vinyl Vibes, and started performing at open mic nights around town. Sometimes after her shifts, Emily would catch a glimpse of him on stage, his confidence growing with every song, his small but loyal crowd expanding. She was proud of him, though worried about how long she could support them both. Then one evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Jordan made a surprising request. "I want to record an album," he said cautiously. Emily stopped rinsing a plate and turned to him. "An album?" "Yeah, a real one. I've been writing non-stop. I've got enough songs, and there's a local studio that works with new artists on a budget. But even the budget price is a few £1,000s. I've saved some, but..." He looked at her, hope and hesitation mixed in his gaze. "Would you help me pay for it?" Emily leaned against the kitchen counter, heart pounding. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the risk. What if he failed? What if she put everything into this and he got crushed? but she remembered how it felt to have someone believe in you. When she chose nursing over law, it was Jordan who told her to follow her heart. He'd even written himself a letter to remind himself that his life was his own. "I'll help," she said softly. "We'll make it happen." Jordan's smile was radiant. He hugged her again, whispering, "You won't regret this, I promise." The next 2 months were a whirlwind of sacrifices. Emily picked up extra shifts at the hospital. Jordan worked longer hours at the record store, scrimped on nights out, and poured himself into writing and rehearsing. The studio sessions began, and Emily sometimes sat quietly in the control room, watching him pour his soul into every note. Seeing him in the studio was like witnessing someone discovering themselves, focused, driven, alive. The songs were raw and beautiful stories of heartbreak, hope, family, and finding one's voice. When the album was finally finished, they threw a small listening party in Emily's apartment. A handful of friends, a few neighbors, and a mountain of cheap snacks filled the cramped room. The moment Jordan's first track played, the chatter died down. By the last song, more than a few eyes were glistening with tears. The response was overwhelmingly positive. One guest, a friend of a friend who worked at an indie label, asked for a copy to share with her team. 2 weeks later, Jordan received an email that changed everything. The label wanted to meet him. They were interested in signing him. Not a guarantee, but a door opening. And that was all Jordan had ever needed. When the deal was finally inked and Jordan's debut single became a hit on streaming platforms, Emily cried. He dedicated it to her. In the liner notes he wrote, "To Emily, who said yes when I needed it most. You helped me find my voice." The months that followed were surreal. His music gained popularity. Small gigs turned into tours. Local interviews blossomed into features in national magazines. But Jordan never forgot where it all started. In a tiny apartment on a rainy Thursday, with nothing but a dream and the courage to ask. One evening, almost a year after that rainy day, Jordan stood in front of Emily's door. They sat on the same couch reflecting on everything. "What if you'd said no?" he asked. Emily smiled. "I thought about it. But you had that look in your eyes. The one that said, 'This matters.' How could I say no to that?" He looked at her long and said quietly, "You saved me." She shook her head. "No, Jordan. You saved yourself. I just opened the door." Sometimes the biggest moments in life come disguised as small requests. And sometimes saying yes is the hardest and best thing you'll ever do. But as they sat there in the quiet, a soft, unfamiliar chime echoed from Jordan's phone. A message popped up on the screen with a cryptic note. "We've only just begun." Neither of them recognized the sender. What did it mean? And who was watching Jordan's rise from the shadows? The rain had finally stopped outside Emily's apartment in Ashford, but an uneasy chill hung in the air. The soft glow from the street lamp spilled through the half-open blinds, casting long shadows across the worn carpet. Emily sat stiffly on the edge of the sofa, her fingers nervously tapping against the armrest. Jordan was beside her, phone still in his hand, staring at the screen as if willing the enigmatic message to explain itself. "We've only just begun." The words felt like a riddle wrapped in a threat, an open door to something unknown. Neither of them knew what to make of it. "Who sent it?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jordan shook his head, his damp curls falling over his brow. "I don't know. It's a number I don't recognize. I thought it might be from the label or someone connected to the industry, but I checked. No one's expecting me to get messages like this." Emily's eyes narrowed. "Sounds like the start of a crime thriller. Should we call the cops?" Jordan chuckled, but the smile was forced. "If it's a thriller, I hope I'm not the first to die." Emily grinned despite herself. "Well, you'd make a terrible lead character if you're the first to die. And hey, maybe it's just some prankster messing with you." "Yeah, or maybe it's the universe reminding me that success comes with strings attached," Jordan muttered. Emily reached over and squeezed his hand. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Just like everything else, they sat in silence for a few more moments, the hum of the city outside their small apartment a comforting reminder that life went on beyond their worries. Jordan finally tucked his phone into his jacket pocket and stood up, stretching his arms over his head. "I'm going to bed. Early shift tomorrow, remember?" Emily nodded, watching him disappear down the narrow hallway to the bedroom. She felt the weight of the day pressing down on her again. But this time it was mixed with a strange excitement. Whatever the message meant, something was coming. A challenge, a mystery, perhaps a new chapter in their lives. Emily turned off the living room light. The glow from the street lamp flickered briefly, then steadied. Outside, unnoticed by either of them, a shadow melted into the darkness, phone in hand, fingers hovering over a reply. Soon. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, the kind of day that seemed to carry the weight of the world on its shoulders. A perfect reflection of Emily's mood as she brewed her third cup of coffee. The soft clatter of dishes from the kitchen and the faint hum of the radio filled the small Ashford apartment, a comforting background to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Jordan emerged from his room, his hair tousled from sleep, wearing a loose gray hoodie and faded jeans. Despite the exhaustion etched into his features, there was a flicker of determination in his green eyes that hadn't been there before. Emily watched him pour himself a cup of tea, the steam curling up like a silent signal of hope. "You okay?" she asked, sliding a mug toward him. He took it gratefully. "Yeah, just weird night. That message is still bugging me." Emily sighed, running a hand through her own dark hair. "Did you try calling back?" Jordan shook his head. "No signal. And my phone just won't connect. Like it's blocked or something." "Well, that's suspicious," Emily muttered, her nurse's instinct kicking in. "Did you mention this to anyone else?" "Not yet. I didn't want to worry you," she smiled softly. "You don't have to carry it alone." Before Jordan could reply, the phone buzzed again on the kitchen counter. Both of them turned to look, heart skipping a beat. The screen flashed the same unknown number. Emily's fingers trembled slightly as she picked it up. The message preview read, "Meet me at the old mill, 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone." Jordan frowned. "The old mill? That place has been closed for years. Creepy as hell." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like a bad horror movie. Why would someone want to meet you there? And alone?" Jordan's jaw tightened. "That's the thing, I don't know. But I have to find out." Emily's mind raced. The nursing world had taught her to trust her gut, and right now it was screaming that this was dangerous. "You can't go by yourself. It's not safe." Jordan gave a small, rueful smile. "I appreciate that, but if I bring you or anyone else, they might not show up. Or worse, they might think I'm scared." Emily reached out and grabbed his hand firmly. "Then I'm coming with you. No arguments." He hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. But we keep it quick and quiet." The day dragged on with an unbearable slowness. Emily tried to focus on her hospital rounds, but her mind kept drifting to the looming meeting. Jordan, meanwhile, was restless, pacing their cramped living room, guitar slung over his shoulder, fingers absent-mindedly plucking strings. By late afternoon, Emily had packed a small bag, just in case, and slipped into a dark leather jacket over a fitted black dress that hit just above the knee. Her boots clicked softly on the floor as she moved, the slight curve of her silhouette catching the dim light in a way that was both elegant and subtly alluring without crossing any lines. A delicate silver necklace rested against her collarbone, the pendant shaped like a tiny key, a gift from Jordan last Christmas, symbolizing opening doors. Jordan looked up as she finished getting ready, his eyes lingering a moment longer than usual. "You look ready for anything." Emily smirked. "That's the plan." As twilight settled over Ashford, they slipped out the back door and headed toward the outskirts of town where the old mill stood, a hulking relic of the past, its broken windows and sagging roof silhouetted against the darkening sky. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying wood. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of fear and adrenaline. They moved quietly, shadows among shadows, until they reached the rusted gate. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind a stack of old crates, tall, cloaked in a dark coat, face obscured by the hood. "Jordan." The voice was low, familiar but distorted. "I've been waiting." Jordan swallowed hard. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure laughed softly, a sound that sent chills down Emily's spine. "All in good time. But first, prove you're ready to take the next step." From inside the coat, a small envelope was produced and tossed at Jordan's feet. He bent down and picked it up, his hands shaking. Emily leaned closer, eyes wide. The envelope was heavy, sealed with a wax stamp bearing a symbol neither of them recognized, a stylized letter entwined with a musical clef. Jordan's breath caught. "What is this?" The figure stepped back, melting into the shadows. "Your future awaits. But beware, the path you choose may cost more than you realize." Before they could respond, the figure vanished into the night, leaving Emily and Jordan alone with the cold wind and the envelope's mysterious promise. Emily looked at Jordan, her voice barely a whisper. "What do we do now?" He stared at the envelope, then met her eyes with a fierce resolve. "We open it." As the first drops of rain began to fall again, the envelope trembled slightly in Jordan's hands, as if alive, ready to unleash secrets that would change everything. And somewhere, unseen and silent, a pair of eyes watched from the darkness, a faint smile playing on lips that knew far more than they let on. The envelope felt unusually heavy in Jordan's hands as he broke the wax seal, the faint scent of old parchment drifting up. Emily watched closely, her fingers curling into the edge of the worn wooden crate beside her. Anticipation and dread tangled in the cool night air. The sky above was a deep indigo, the moon a pale witness to what was unfolding in the shadows of the old mill. Jordan carefully unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate, and unmistakably English, each word inked with a precision that spoke of someone both educated and meticulous. "Dear Jordan," it began, "if you are reading this, then you have taken your first step towards something greater than you ever imagined. Your music has caught the attention of those who understand its true power. The power to change lives, to stir souls, and to unlock doors to worlds unseen." Emily's eyes flicked up to Jordan's. "Worlds unseen? Sounds like someone's been watching too many fantasy films." Jordan smiled faintly, but his fingers trembled as he continued reading. "The path ahead will not be easy. There will be sacrifices, tests of character, and moments when you question your own resolve. But know this. You were chosen because your voice carries a rare gift. We offer you guidance, resources, and a chance to rise beyond the ordinary." Emily crossed her arms, skepticism etched on her face. "Who's we? And why you? What does this have to do with music labels or albums?" Jordan's eyes scanned the last lines. "Meet us at the Old Ashford Theatre tomorrow at midnight. Come prepared to embrace your destiny. Bring only your courage and your instrument." The curtain rises soon. Emily's heart skipped a beat. The Ashford Theatre was a crumbling relic from the 1920s, shuttered for years after a fire gutted its interior. Rumors of hauntings and strange happenings surrounded the place, perfect for a midnight rendezvous or a particularly elaborate prank. Jordan folded the letter carefully. "I don't know if I should be excited or terrified." Emily gave him a look that was equal parts warning and encouragement. "You're going. And I'm coming with you." He laughed softly, a sound that echoed strangely against the broken walls around them. "You're braver than I am, Em." They made their way back through the deserted streets of Ashford, the rain now a steady drizzle, the world around them whispering secrets. Emily's mind raced with questions. Who had sent the letter? What was this power they hinted at? And could Jordan's music really be the key to something beyond their understanding? Back in the safety of their apartment, Emily prepared a small bag, extra clothes, a flashlight, and her old nurse's multi-tool. She slipped on a fitted leather jacket over a simple white blouse and dark jeans, her hair pulled back to keep it out of her face. There was a quiet strength in her posture, a readiness for whatever lay ahead. Jordan tuned his guitar, the familiar twang of strings grounding him amid the swirling uncertainty. His fingers moved deftly, coaxing out a haunting melody that seemed to hang in the air like a promise. At midnight, they stood outside the boarded-up entrance of the Ashford Theatre. The heavy wooden doors loomed before them, scars of fire and neglect etched into every splintered panel. Emily's breath came in shallow bursts as Jordan raised his guitar case. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes, I'll ever be," she replied with a creak that echoed through the empty street. Jordan pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and memories. Pale moonlight filtered through cracks in the ceiling, casting ghostly beams across faded velvet seats and shattered chandeliers. A single spotlight flickered to life on the stage, illuminating a figure waiting in the shadows. A man dressed in a tailored black suit, his face obscured beneath the brim of a wide hat. "Welcome, Jordan," the man said smoothly. "You have questions. I have answers. But first, a test." Emily stepped forward, her voice steady. "What kind of test?" The man smiled, revealing a glint of something unsettling beneath his calm exterior. "Music is your gift. But it is also your weapon. Play for me, and we shall see if you are worthy." Jordan swallowed hard but stepped onto the stage, guitar in hand. The room was silent except for the faint drip of water somewhere in the ceiling. He closed his eyes and began to play. A melody raw and aching, filled with longing and hope. As the notes filled the theater, the shadows seemed to stir, the air vibrating with unseen energy. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine, the hairs on her arms standing on end. When the last chord faded, the man nodded slowly. You have talent. But talent alone is not enough. Are you prepared to face what lies ahead? To challenge the darkness and embrace the light within? Jordan met his gaze, determination blazing in his eyes. I am. The man extended a hand. Then your journey begins now. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut behind them, plunging the theater into darkness save for the lone spotlight. Emily's heart pounded as the man's figure seemed to dissolve into the shadows. A whisper echoed through the cavernous space. Welcome to the real stage. Emily gripped Jordan's arm. What have we gotten ourselves into? Jordan's voice was steady but low. Whatever it is, we face it together. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, pounding against the windows like a drumroll for the unknown. And in the dark corners of Ashford, eyes watched, waiting for the next move in a game far larger than either sibling had imagined. The first act had begun, but the script was still unwritten. The darkness inside the Ashford Theater felt suffocating, thick like a velvet curtain drawn too tight. Emily's fingertips grazed the worn arm of the battered seat beside her, grounding her as Jordan's fingers traced the strings of his guitar, now silent but still warm from the music. The spotlight above flickered erratically, casting their elongated shadows against the cracked plaster walls, as if the theater itself was breathing with anticipation. The man in the black suit, who had vanished as mysteriously as he'd appeared, left behind an unsettling silence that pressed on their ears. Then from somewhere deep within the theater came a faint sound, a slow rhythmic tapping, like the ticking of a giant clock, echoing through the empty hallways. We need to find a way out, Emily whispered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. Her eyes scanned the darkened stage, searching for any sign of light or movement. Jordan nodded, slinging his guitar over his shoulder. Agreed. But first, let's see if there's anything down those corridors. They stepped cautiously off the stage, their footsteps muffled by years of dust and decay. The air was stale, carrying the scent of burnt wood and forgotten memories. Paint peeled from the walls like shedding skin, and old posters of long-forgotten shows fluttered weakly in the draft as they moved deeper into the labyrinthine backstage area. Emily's phone buzzed silently. A message from an unknown number. Asterisk, trust no one. The truth hides in the music. Asterisk, she showed it to Jordan, who frowned. Great. Cryptic warnings now. Just what I needed to hear. Emily smirked despite herself. At least it's consistent. Turning a corner, they stumbled upon a narrow stairwell leading down into darkness. The tapping sound grew louder, more insistent, drawing them toward the basement. After you, Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the growing unease. The stairs creaked beneath their weight as they descended. At the bottom, they found themselves in a cavernous room filled with old instruments, dusty pianos with yellowed keys, tarnished brass horns, and cracked violins hanging from the walls like trophies. In the center stood a grand piano, surprisingly polished amidst the decay. Its lid was open, revealing keys that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light. Jordan approached it slowly, fingers itching to play. This place, it's like a shrine. Emily's gaze caught a figure seated at the piano's bench, a young woman with fiery red hair. Her eyes closed as she gently touched the keys, producing notes that seemed to float like whispers. Startled, Emily cleared her throat. The woman's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly intensity. Who are you? Jordan asked, stepping protectively in front of Emily. The woman smiled, a mixture of warmth and sadness. I'm Lyra, a keeper of melodies lost and found. You're here because your music has power, power that can awaken or destroy. Emily exchanged a glance with Jordan. We don't understand. What's happening? Lyra's gaze softened. This theater is a nexus, a crossroads where music and fate intertwine. The man who summoned you is part of a secret society, the Symphonium, Guardians of Musical Magic. They believe you carry the key to a harmony that could change the world. Jordan's brow furrowed. Musical magic? You're joking. Not at all, Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. But beware, there are those who seek to silence that power, to bend it for darkness. Emily swallowed. So what now? What do we do? Lyra stood, her presence filling the room like a rising crescendo. You must unlock the next movement of your journey. But first you need to face the test of echoes. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Another test. Lyra nodded. Music will be your guide. But you must confront your own fears and doubts. Only then can you truly harness your gift. She extended a small, ornate box toward him. Inside is a melody. A fragment of the symphony you must complete. Play it and listen closely. The echoes will reveal your path. Jordan took the box reverently, opening it to find a delicate music box carved from dark wood. As he wound the key, a haunting tune began to play, notes cascading like tears in the dim light. Suddenly, the room around them shimmered and shifted. Shadows danced along the walls and Emily felt as though they were being pulled into another world. A realm where past and present, reality and dream, intertwined. In this strange place, Jordan found himself standing alone on a vast stage, the audience invisible but their presence palpable. He lifted his guitar, fingers trembling, and began to play the melody from the music box. Each note summoned visions, memories of childhood dreams, moments of doubt, the weight of his father's expectations, and the fierce determination to break free. Emily watched from the sidelines, her heart aching as the music wove a tapestry of pain and hope. When Jordan's song reached its climax, a brilliant light erupted, engulfing the stage. When the light faded, Jordan was back in the basement, breathless but transformed. Lyra smiled. You have passed the test of echoes. But the symphony is far from complete. Emily stepped forward, determination burning in her eyes. Then let's finish it. Together. Outside, the first rays of dawn pierced the gloom, casting long shadows over the theater. The rain had ceased, but the storm within their lives was just beginning to roar, and somewhere beyond the walls of Ashford, the shadowy puppeteer of their fate watched and waited, a silent question lingering in the air. Who would control the music of destiny, and at what cost?